Hi, welcome to I Tried to Eat My Phone. I am Karen Jaworski, and I am joined today by my friend Jean. Jean and I worked together a long time ago, and we're going to talk a little bit about parenting today. I this is my throw out question for you. Do you have a shining moment as a parent? Like what's your shining moment where you felt like, yes, like I'm doing this right?
Um, the little shining moments are when people compliment you and say, your child's so well behaved and has such nice manners. And you try not to look too shocked as you respond and say, oh, well, thank you, because you don't see that at home. That's one of the measures that maybe I'm doing something right, even though it doesn't necessarily feel like it day to day.
Yeah.
Um, And then just another big one is having a child who does not fit in the gender, um, in the gender norm, or the gender that they were assigned at birth was not accurate for
Mm-hmm.
how they are as an older teen, and just being able to be on board with that and accept my child for who he is, and not my preconceived idea of who he would be for the rest of his life. So
Can
that was
I
another
Can
moment.
yeah, can I ask one about like age wise? Or did you have a feeling prior to your child kind of letting you know that or
So it wasn't a situation where he shared it and I went, well, I'm glad you finally realized it. It wasn't
Mhm.
something like that. It wasn't one of those things where I'd known it all along, but it also
Mhm.
wasn't a surprise. And
Okay.
it it was kind of more of a, oh, that,
Mhm.
well, I guess that makes sense, rather than something that I had seen coming up ahead of time. And he recognized it for himself around puberty,
Mhm.
and I think dwelled on it for a while, and
Yeah.
finally talked to me. He talked to me a little bit here and there, actually, in middle school, and then freshman year was when he um, more decisiveness behind him said, Mom, actually, I really am he and him. I'm not she,
Mhm.
her. I'm not they, them. I'm he, him. And my name is Taylor. And so I would say it was his freshman year in high school is when he really truly came out and announced it.
Do you feel like what do you think you took from like your own background that helped you kind of navigate this? Because these are kind of new waters for us as parents. Like to have this be a thing where we can talk to our kids about things like this. Like what do you think was an influencer in your background to kind of be like, okay, we're gonna do this and I'm gonna be here for you.
Um, you know, Growing up, my parents always had friends who were part of the Pride community. And it wasn't anything within our house, but it also wasn't something that, we ever talked down about, or referred to in any way other than the norm for somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
um, even if it wasn't the norm for us. And we did not have any friends who were transgender. It is kind of it's more open, definitely, than when I was growing up. And I will say that probably aside from my childhood of just being accepting and welcoming of wherever somebody was and wherever they came from, um, one of the biggest influences that impacted how I responded was having friends who shared their journeys on Facebook, and really just seeing their raw feelings and the
Mm-hmm.
things that hurt and the things that helped. And just having friends on Facebook who shared about their journey as it was happening, and it wasn't like some distant memory, but it was, I just talked to my mom and she said blah blah blah, and that really hurt my feelings. um,
Yeah.
that made an impact on how I responded when my child told me.
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, I think I would think though, I mean, are there times where you sort of feel like, as parents, we're so protective and I mean, what kind of worries do you have, like in terms of your child and thinking, what are they in for? Or do you feel like a sense of optimism with, kind of the way the world is moving now, especially?
Um, I have the same fears that I have for any of my kids. Will they be happy? Will they be successful? Is there someone out there who loves them and accepts them for whoever they are? And this is just one part of him. It's still him. It's still the same child that had a different name before. But, I those parent fears and hopes and dreams haven't changed. I want good things for all my kids. Are there things that will make it harder? Yes. On top of his gender identity being different from the mainstream per
Mhm.
se, he struggles with ADHD, he struggles with mental wellness in general. And so those are actually more pressing to me than his gender. He has become much more confident and um, productive, I guess, moving
Mhm.
forward since coming out. Prior to that, life was really, really hard for him. He was self harming. He was an at risk youth for sure. And since coming out, that has really shifted. And um, he's been very good about sharing the ways in which it's shifted and sharing how living a different identity impacted his mental health
Mhm.
and how the support of parents, the support of friends, how much those things impact his mental wellness here. And I think I got lost. I went in a different direction from your
No, no,
question.
no, that's good because I was gonna ask like, has he recognized like how how your reaction as a parent has been beneficial? Or I mean, not that you're looking for some sort of reward or anything, but has that been recognized as this is a safe place for me to go?
It has. As supportive and proactive as I am in protecting who he is and supporting who he is, his father is the opposite.
Mm.
Not that he doesn't love and want good things for his child, but he's not quite on board the same train. And so we've had the contrast of two very different parent approaches, or two very different people to begin with,
Mhm.
but two very different approaches. His father doesn't live with me or us and has not for 15 years. So since he was one, basically. Um, so in under my roof, we have positive support. He's been very vocal about that. He's been vocal on his social media about it, and he has told me how much he appreciates it. It was one of those things where you either get on board or you get left behind, and I fully recognized that and chose to get on board, and so we did a lot of things that were affirming,
Yeah.
you know, pretty much right off the bat.
How about garnering kind of the sentiment of your other kids with this? Like, has everyone kind of come together on this? I mean, has this been, I mean, I'm sure it's kind of a change for everybody. So how do you navigate parenting with, other kids and each kid having their own like things going on? And I mean, that's a tough thing to navigate, right?
It is. So they've been great. So he has an older brother who is 22, was maybe 20 ish when Taylor came out, and then an older sister who's 20. was 18.
Mhm.
And they're the younger generation who get it. They were raised more with that understanding of the gender spectrum, and not one or the other, but there's many different things, and what people think you are when you're born may not really be who you are as you age. So they really get it already. I asked my now 20-year-old a few years ago, I asked her on National Coming Out Day, I said, I have a lot of my friends on Facebook who are talking about National Coming Out Day. Do you have a lot of friends who are mentioning it? And she's like, Mom, kids don't do that anymore. It's obvious when you show up at home and you either have a boyfriend or a girlfriend and you introduce them to your parents.
Right.
So,
Huh.
they
Yeah.
they get it. And obviously this is a safe house. So her comfort level with doing something like that would be different maybe than somebody else's.
Yeah.
My youngest is 8. She was 6 at the time. And for about the first day, she said, nope, I'm not going to call you Taylor, and I'm not going to call you a boy. And then after that, she's been his strongest advocate. And she was probably the first one to just switch it over and say, oh, this is my brother Taylor, even when it was still
Wow.
new for me. And, it's a harder thing for me. Or it was, it's not now, but at the time it was hard for me to shift to my son. And I would just say my child. And she was just like done with it. And she would tell her friends and say, oh, well, this is what it means.
Isn't it? I feel like John and I always joke that kids are like puke and rally. Like, it's just like the mental flexibility is like, all right, got it. Like, whereas
It
as
just,
adults, we're so kind of ingrained in like our certain kind of way. And kids have this mental flexibility of thought. I mean, this as being an OT, like it's just, they have this mental flexibility that's like almost enviable.
it really, it was fun. It really took her about one night of sleep to adjust to it. And it was funny though, too, because afterwards she's like, Mom, I'm a girl. I know I'm a girl. I'm like, that's fine. You're a girl. Thank you for letting me know.
We're good on that. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Just want to make sure I'm still a girl.
Have you ever had a point though where you're like, with any of your kids, where you just feel like I'm throwing in the towel, like I don't know what I'm doing, like
Every day. Yeah. I mean, there's a reason people talk about the teenage years are hard, or 3-year-olds are hard, or whatever, 10-year-olds are hard. It is. It's true. Life is hard.
Yeah.
And kids are hard. And just as soon as you master, 8-year-old Jillian, she turns into 9-year-old Jillian, and what am I going to do now? Or, so it doesn't end. Kids are hard. And even, my adult son, he at one point told me he was gay, and, okay, great. That's fine. Thanks for letting me know. And then he asked if he could invite his girlfriend somewhere. And so it's like, oh, ha, ha, invite them all. And he goes, Mom, no, really, I'm serious. And I went, oh, well, what about what you told me? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, oh, well, I'm just a little confused. And he's like, yeah, life's confusing. And it's, it doesn't change once you're a parent. Things are still confusing, and you still, you just kind of roll with it and go, oh, that didn't work out so well. I'm going to do something different next time.
That's what I always, we have a friend here who just had a baby, and they named her Maria, which I was like, love the name. But they were joking about people giving them advice. And I was like, my advice is always, don't take anyone's advice. Like, just you're a functional person. Like, figure it out. You'll be okay. Like, it'll work out. None of us know what we're doing, right? I mean, somehow you're an adult, and
Well, you
You're
still
supposed to
look
act
around
like
for
one.
somebody who's more of an adult than you.
Yeah.
I'm almost 50 and I'm still looking around trying to figure out who's the adultier person in my life that to help me with these hard decisions. And what I think what the advice you gave to your friend to take no advice is so smart, because what works in one person's home doesn't necessarily work in the next person's home. And you really do have to figure out what works for your family, for your household, and what's healthy. Obviously.
Well, yeah, and it's such a dynamic process too, parenting. I mean, like you were saying before about the different ages, you're constantly kind of changing your construct of what's working, and not just ages, but what's happening now. I mean, if we've had to change any kind of major construct of parenting, this is it, because there's no outline for how this is supposed to go. And that's been
Not
tough.
everybody's figuring it out as they go every day.
Yeah, how do you feel like you're handling with parenting during the pandemic?
Um, I am not minding it.
Mhm.
I don't mind. I think we touched on this before. I don't mind being at home. I have a good house. I have a good yard. We have a lot of nature areas we can walk to.
Mhm.
Um, I'm certainly very privileged in all those things. I'm very fortunate. Um, my outlook might be a lot different if I was in a really small living space in the middle of a city without the ability to be out away from people. Um, but I'm enjoying it. My 8-year-old has been on distance learning this whole semester. Um, there's moments that are hard, and there's moments, in the past years in school where things are hard. I mean, there's always ups and downs with school.
Yeah.
Um, being distance is no different, but she's a homebody. She loves to be with me. And so as far as she's concerned, this is like awesome that she gets to hang out with me all day. She gets the dogs, she gets the cat. We can go out in the front yard. She can have a snack. She can have her shoes off. Like, for her, this hasn't been so bad.
Yeah.
Juggling work while supporting her gets trickier.
Mhm.
Long days are hard. If I'm working late hours, that's really hard on her.
Yeah.
My 16-year-old is doing kind of his own thing. So, I'm just trying to make sure that like the household responsibilities stay up. And that's the hardest thing right now, is to make sure that we just stay up on all the other stuff.
Mhm.
And I think part of that is just when you're home all the time, it's different than going to work and coming home and being in the routine of doing something and keeping it clean and doing the next task. When you're home, it's easy for me anyway. It's really easy to get disorganized on what needs to be done,
Yeah.
and not have it all pile up.
Yeah. Well, Jeanne, thank you so much. I have always looked up to you as a parent, and even more so now. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be your friend. I've always, I wish we could share an office again
I know.
without having to breathe in the same space, but
With masks.
with masks, so we could just make faces at each other. Guess what face I'm making now?
Thanks, Jeanne.
Thank you, Karen.